Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on this knife, and as you can see, this is the Remington, the one that got away, Deluxe Hawkbill Silver Bullet by Great Eastern Cutlery. So this is another one of the new, relatively new line of Remington knives being made by Great Eastern Cutlery. And so they've done a few of these so far. They did a baby bullet trapper. So the smaller version of the jumbo trapper that Great Eastern Cutlery does. Then they did a Granddaddy Barlow, so actually a pattern that Great Eastern Cutlery hasn't used on their own knives. And now they have done this knife, which is a swayback hawkbill, often called a pruner, with this really big hawkbill or pruning blade. So this, like the other two knives in this series, is a very traditional knife. It's one that Remington did in the past, in kind of the heyday of Remington. I've been fortunate enough to know a collector of the original Remingtons and have actually seen a couple of the original versions of Remington swayback pruning knives or harvester knives, whatever you want to call them. There's several different names for knives like this that have this swayback pattern or handle shape, and then a pruning blade, which is a blade with this edge that turns downward like so. I think that Great Eastern Cutlery does a really great job of making these like the originals. Now, there was another swayback hawkbill Remington made in this same year. Remington did a kind of lower end version that was less expensive, but I believe also made in the United States, and I'm not 100% sure who made those ones. I think maybe Bear & Son, but these Great Eastern Cutlery ones are the ones that I am interested in collecting. And it's because I think they do such a great job of making them really look like the original Remingtons. Now, another thing that I like about these is that they come with this great artwork. So Remington is known for having advertising with really great paintings in their artwork and kind of tin signs and things like that. And this definitely fits in with that. The other artwork for particularly the Granddaddy Barlow was great in this series of knives. And then this one I think is really good also. These guys are on a hunting and fishing trip. It looks like they got themselves a moose already, and now they're fishing, and their catch is being taken by a hawk here, or an eagle. And interestingly, I've actually gone on some float hunting trips, and so it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. And I really do enjoy the art that goes with these. And they do have a Zippo and I think a tin sign that you can get that has the same art on it. But I appreciate it on the box here, and there's a history of people collecting Remington boxes along with the knives also. Speaking of that, inside it is, you know, a kind of plastic felt type thing here that holds the knife in an open position so you can see it well if you want to display it in the box. But then it also comes with a little insert. Now these are kind of hard to store. They're like pretty big. So I have not found a great way to store these that works well along with the other knives that I store. So I actually think that I bent the one for the baby bullet, the first of these that came out. I think it was called the Prospector. But I'll show you the write-up here. So you can read through this. You can pause the video and read through it without having to hurry there. But basically it just says it's made in the USA, long history, oil it, and you've got an heirloom knife. And that's true. I think that that's really one of the big things that draws me and a lot of other people to Great Eastern Cutlery, is that they feel very authentic. They feel very full of historicity. and in a way that makes them feel worth, pursuing collecting. And that's certainly true with this one. I do like that it has the sterling silver shield. I think that that's a pretty a nice touch. Again, a traditional type thing. Other Remingtons have had that, and just gives it a little bit of an extra feel to it. And then you can see it has the classic Remington etch, Remington UMC tang stamp, and then their tang number system, which is different than Great Eastern Cutlery's normal. So Remington 693, I'm assuming SB is swayback. I'm not as familiar with the tang system for Remington as I am for Great Eastern Cutlery. But you can see that this has this really classic saw cut bone handle, which is actually very similar to that on the Granddaddy Barlow, or the Cowboy, which is not exactly, it's different than the other knife in the series, the Baby Bullet, or the Prospector, I believe it was called. I do really like this saw cut. I think it's a super classic looking handle material. Really fits in with the old Remingtons. And you can see it has no gaps on the back spring or the liners there. It has nice action. Now the tip is closer to proud than I think it has any right to be, being that this is a Hawkbill. Like, this tip has all of the frame that it could be dropped, and you would definitely still be able to pinch this knife open, and it would not have blade wrap. I really don't know why on a swayback Hawkbill the tip can't sit a little deeper than that. But I don't really plan to use this knife, so it's or carry it even, so it's not a huge deal to me. You can use the match strike long pull also, and it is centered well, and there is no blade wrap, obviously, with how high it sits. But this knife does have gaps between the cover material, the bone here, and the bolsters. So hopefully you can see that. It's something that I have found has been pretty common on GECs over the last year, maybe 4 years, something like that. But particularly over the last year, it seems like, honestly, the majority of GECs that I get and see, and I've seen a good number, even though I haven't maybe been buying as many as I have in the past, I have seen a good number. And I've seen a lot of gaps here. So you can, even if you go to like Smoky Mountain Knife Works listing for this knife, you can see the gap in the picture of the knife in the listing. So I do think it's relatively common. And speaking of that, this knife is a little more expensive than most GECs on the primary market. So it's $200, I believe, at all dealers that carry it. And I don't think that that is like an out of line price, but it is more than really any GEC single bladed knife in bone that except for the few dealers that kind of have flipper pricing, or however you want to say it. Most dealers, a single bladed GEC knife, especially in bone handles, would be nowhere near $200. But I think with the extras that you get and the kind of history of it, I don't mind, buying them at that price, because it is something kind of unique, and it's a series that you can collect, and really you can collect it without too much trouble. And I think that's a big value also. And what I mean by that is they make a lot of these, and so they're available. You can just go buy one right now from several different dealers, and that is definitely not the case with other GECs. So I think that there is value in that. You can buy this knife and do it when you want to, right? Not have to do it right when it drops, and I appreciate that. So overall, I think that this is a really cool knife. I love that it looks very much like a vintage Remington. From a practical standpoint, I wish that the blade sat lower in the blade well, and I do wish that it didn't have these gaps here. But everything else is really nicely done. I love the bone. I love the sterling silver shield, and I think it's a pretty cool addition to this series of knives that I do think that I am at least somewhat interested in collecting. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, make sure you give it a thumbs up. You can leave any comments below. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.